Welcome to Great Practice, Great Life by Atticus Incorporated.
Hey, Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And today we're going to go right at that intersection of building a great practice and a great life. And I have, as I mentioned in the intro, a well-known author, well-known keynote speaker, and really a totally fun guy that I've been enjoying talking to and getting to know. And that's Matthew Emerzian. Matthew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Steve. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you here. And you've created a global phenomenon around one conversation or one statement that comes off your book, Why Every Monday Matters. And I'd really like you to talk to our audience about what was the genesis for this book? What was the genesis for this really global movement that you've created?
Yeah, thanks. Well, a lot of people think that I wanted to create like a Monday makeover program, and there is something to that, but that's not what inspired this idea. What inspired this idea was on a Monday morning, I woke up with a massive panic attack, which turned into chronic anxiety disorder and depression, and it was a Monday that changed my life forever. And at the same time, I will say this: that I actually love Mondays. I always have, even when I was a young kid. It was the day to go back to school, see my friends, play soccer, whatever it was. So I've never understood why we have restaurants that thank God for Fridays. It's just a weird TGIF, whatever the restaurants are. Like let's start Mondays off inspired, and it's a new beginning, and take the week on and see what we can create and inspire. So but ultimately I went through a very challenging time starting on a Monday morning, and I just wanted to give a cadence to help people to start the week off in a much more productive way, and instead of dreading Mondays and having it ruining the second half of our Sundays as well. Like let's own it and again get Monday back.
Got it. It makes perfect sense. But you did more than just that. I mean, you did more than wrote a book. You took this whole concept and flipped it. And you were very successful. You had a great career in the music industry. You were working with bands like U2, Coldplay. You were working with the Kardashian family, the Kardashian dynasty, I guess. And I mean, you were doing a lot of things, and then you just had this terrible experience and decided to pivot your entire life. I mean, went financially successful to, I guess you would say, really mission successful. So if you're okay, talk to me a little bit more about that side of your life and what happened. And I'd like you to talk to our audience, which is predominantly legal professionals, about how they can take your lessons and apply them in their practices, because some of our lawyers are really interested in just, how do I increase the gross revenue of my practice? How do I make more money? How do I serve my clients better? So I know that's a really big, complex, loaded question, but there's a lot happening here in this conversation for me, and I'd really like to have your guidance on how to explain it.
Yeah, I know that is a big question. We'll have to chunk this thing off a little bit. I mean, I think for me, it starts with at the end of the day is like, how do we all define success, and what does success look like? For me, coming out of business school, got my MBA from UCLA. My friends all had big six-figure jobs coming out, and I had some big offers as well. And for better or for worse, in the season of my life when I was looking to decide which job I was going to take, either with Procter and Gamble or Deloitte, my best friend called me up and said, "Hey, I want to talk. I want you to manage my band." And he had just signed a record deal with Sony Records, and for whatever reason, being a band manager just sounded like the greatest thing in the world to me. And I can't explain it, but we wrote it down on a Domino's pizza napkin that was my official contract, and it opened me up to this whole other track in my life that up until then, like on paper, I was pretty square. I was, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was, you know, I was raised to you work hard in school. I was an athlete. I played water polo in college as well. So I was always achieving. You do well on your test scores, you get good grades, you go to a good college, you get a good job, you get married, you have two kids. That was kind of the path of my life, for the majority of my life. And then this music thing just opened up another side of me, that there was a creative side to me and an almost entrepreneurial side to me that I kind of had kept quiet, if you will. And being around these artists started to open that up for me quite a bit. And so, yes, when I met Robert Kardashian and he hired me to be a senior vice president, I found myself in this place of my definition of success, which I'm not proud of saying, was, have a house in the Hollywood Hills, be at all the VIP events, the red carpets, the Grammys. I was working with the biggest celebrities in the world, make a lot of money, have the corner office, the business card and titles, and ultimately, that was my model for success, at that time in my life. And I'm not proud or not proud to say it, but like of that definition, I was quote unquote successful. And so I had checked the boxes. And yet for some reason on a Monday morning when I was tying my shoes to get ready to go to work, all of a sudden that world came crashing down. And so for the first time in my life, I couldn't make sense of who I was or where I was going when I thought I had done everything so right the entire time. And it's it was a shock. It was a shock to the system. I had to question everything, like who am I? Why am I? What does matter to me? What does success look like to me? And all of these questions started just pouring in, which led me on a completely new path to finding purpose and meaning and significance.
So it sounds like you kind of ran a race of achievement.
I did. Yeah.
And during that process, you'd collected the right trophies, got the right office, the right
Yeah.
business card, the right title, and then you had a collapse of meaning. Was there a triggering event, something in particular that happened, or was it a cascading event, or was there something that just, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back? What was it?
Yeah, I think it was all of that. I think ultimately um I was getting this place where randomly, and I don't really share this very often at all, but on the Sunday night before that Monday morning, I actually went on a blind date that was set up by my mom and dad's best friends who knew this gal. And I knew 5 minutes into this blind date that this was not going to be my person. um, and I felt this immense pressure because at the time I was 30, almost 30 years old, 31 years old, and I was already kind of missing the story that I thought was going to be the story for my life. Like I thought at 30 I was going to be married and have two kids at that point in time. So I think as I started noticing this story that I told myself my entire life, or was also informed by family and friends, like this is how life is supposed to go. As it started to go completely different from that, I think I started losing my anchor, and I felt this drift of, okay, where is all this stuff going? And am I failing at everything that I thought that I was so good at? And um, I didn't have answers, I think, for the first time. And so there was this loss of control ultimately. And for me, I always liked to be in control. And for the first time in my life, I had questions that I just couldn't answer. And I think over time, the weight of those questions got so big. And then that night, Sunday night, when I realized the marital question wasn't answered still yet, I think the next morning it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And it's just like, boom, okay, we need to reset this thing because this program is just not working anymore.
Yeah, so you had a loss of sense of meaning of the story of what your future was going to be like, and kind of the foundation of that fell through, like it fell
Yep,
apart, and put you into a position where you had no sense of control, no sense of meaning, and felt emotionally adrift pretty quickly, and put
that's
you
right.
into a place of redesign, reframing, and inquiry. What happened next? I mean, it's a pretty intense thing.
Well, I will tell you, I ended up going into therapy, and we can talk about that. But I will tell you that my therapist years later told me that when I walked in there that first day, like I was a shell of a human. Like there was just nothing there. I was just nothing was registering at all, which is hard words to hear. That I was existing on this earth as a shell of a person. Fortunately, we did do a lot of work, and um, first of all, I surrendered. I'm like, okay, I know that I'm not making the right choices. I'm not doing something right. I got myself here. Uh, so clearly I need help to get out of this position. And so I surrendered to help. I said, I need a coach. I need, and for me personally as an athlete, again, growing up in an amazing family, great parents, great teachers, great coaches, going on to UCLA, playing water polo, winning a national championship, great coaching again. Then all of a sudden you find yourself in the out into the world, and like, where did my coaches go? Where did my mentors go? Who was speaking into my life anymore? And all that was kind of gone. So it was an easy thing for me to say, I need to go get a life coach or a therapist, or I call her my expensive friend, whatever you want to call them.
My expensive friend.
Yes, yeah.
I like
Uh,
that.
yeah. So my expensive friend and I did a lot of work together, and I put her kids through college, and she saved my life. Is pretty much how it went down. Yeah.
I think as I think about our company coaching and supporting lawyers and growing their practices, and having a great life, I think our new tagline should be Atticus, your expensive friend. I kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, you know what's true, and I hope when you say those words, like you truly appreciate the value of being a coach and speaking into people's lives and what you do truly do for those that you serve, right? Because you do help them have a great practice and a great life. And this whole work life integration thing, right? That's going on now, like to speak into both sides of people's lives like that, both in work and in life, is a huge gift to give to your clients. Because I think a lot of us are still searching for answers. We're trying to find, who is that person's going to speak into my life? Who am I going to trust? And trust is a big thing these days as well. So to provide that service, to show up that way for your people, is a real blessing.
It is probably the greatest thing that we as a company and a community get to do, which is to help people discover or cultivate what a great life looks like.
Yep.
And my experience is when they connect with what that is, kind of like what you've done, and they've connected, there's this incredible metamorphosis. It's an incredible butterfly growing out of a cocoon. And when that occurs, then the financial growth explodes. And it's hard for people to understand that because they come and they work really hard at trying to, you know, build a good practice, make some money, hire a great team, be that great lawyer. And they do a lot of work at it. I mean, they really work so hard at it. But it usually has this empty collapse, kind of the experience that you had. There's an achievement collapse. And I usually say achievements running somebody else's race. Growing a great life is when you run your own race. And it's hard to do because you have to cultivate, you learn, you pull the weeds out of the gardens, you go, okay, that didn't work so well. And it goes through an incredible period of self-discovery. And sometimes you do need an expensive friend. I think we're modestly priced between you and me, Matthew. I'm just saying, I think we're modestly priced. I don't think we're expensive, but I think it's a
Right.
good investment. I'm just saying. I don't think anybody else who's listening to this would
I
think
think
we're expensive.
you're less expensive than my therapy. I believe that. But but to your point, I have several friends who are attorneys, several, and it's not an easy path. I mean, even starting with law school, coming out of law school, those first couple years with if you're with a new bureau and a firm, like, I mean, I remember for 2 years I lived with the guy who was his first 2 years with a major law firm, and that guy got grinded to the bone. And it wasn't just the workload, it was the dinners, the recruiting dinners. He would leave at 6 in the morning and get home at 10 at night, like, every single day. And I watched it just grind him down. Now, there's a credible opportunity there as well. So the upside is attractive, financial upside, but also it's a real thing, man. I mean, being an attorney is not the easiest path, and it's a very competitive space. And I see them work a ton, and they're all incredibly successful, wildly financially set. But I think if you ask them honestly, they would say, "Yeah, man, it's coming to cost a little bit."
Yeah, and that's the reason I think your work matters so much to me and your work matters so much to our community is that the incredible opportunity to sync up what matters in your life
Mm.
to what you do in your practice, to be a team member, to sync up with a law firm where it feels like a vocation and not a job, is for us the ultimate powerful connection for a lot of people. So the exploration is important. The exploration of what matters, why it matters, what does your great life look like, and how it syncs and lines up with that great practice is really kind of the holy grail that we're working for. We're trying to get our members to look for. And not everybody finds a similar path. A great practice for one person doesn't look like the same to somebody else. Then you went from, like I said, you had tremendous financial success in the music industry. Now you run a global not-for-profit, and you would probably not give it up. You'd say, okay, you can go back to that corner office, or you can continue to, do the work that you're doing in your not-for-profit. I don't think it'd be a fair fight. I think the not-for-profit would win.
To that though, and I want to be, very honest with your audience. Like in some ways the grass can also be always greener on the other side, right? So when I wrote my first book in 2007, Every Monday Matters, that book became the impetus for everything that has come these last 18 years. And the first thing that happened after that book was we ended up producing programs into schools and programs into companies, and we were selling those programs. And so next thing you knew, this book had become a small for-profit company. I had 3 employees and me, and we were selling programs. Then after 3 years of doing that, something happened where I realized that this idea of mattering, it shifted with me in my heart. Like it didn't feel like something I wanted to sell and make people have to pay for. Like if you pay me, I'll help you know you matter. And my heart shifted. And all of a sudden I woke up and I realized I feel like this should be a nonprofit organization and take on mattering as a cause. And so I transitioned the for-profit into a nonprofit 3 years into the journey, which is not an easy process in and of itself. And thanks to lawyers who helped me, I could do it. But ultimately, then that shifted me again, because now I found myself in a situation where I don't own this company anymore. It's a nonprofit organization that I work for. And the truth is, yes, my life is richer in so many ways that I could have never predicted could happen. At the same time, it doesn't come without the other stresses, right? Running a nonprofit organization is not easy. Dealing, the whole donor acquisition process, your program, it's the reporting, the impact reporting. It's not the easiest path. So I can't sit here in front of you and your audience and say, "Hey, man, I figured out the Holy Grail. I got it all. I got it all worked out. Like, get on my level." Because you know what? It all comes with challenges. And even this work that I find so gratifying, and I wake up every morning so thrilled to get to do. I'm not one of those people that believes like if you love your work, you're never going to work a day of your life. No, I love what I do, but I promise you, it's work. But how do I find the mattering in the work? How do I find the purpose in the work? Even on the things I find mundane or challenging that I don't really want to deal with, how do I change how I see them and put meaning on them to understand that this is part of this beautiful journey that I get to do?
In there, I think you asked a question. How do you reframe it? How? And I think you call it the matter mindset.
Yeah, mattering mindset. That's
Yeah.
right.
So talk a little bit about that, because sometimes, and I really appreciate you saying it, because running a not-for-profit is not easy. Raising money is not for easy. Just the compliance alone is not easy. So it's not like, hey, look, I've got to figure it out, create a not-for-profit and write a book. You're really into a mission-driven mindset. So talk more about the mattering mindset and kind of unfold a little bit what you mean by reframing and how you deal with the nitty-gritty of it.
Happiness is decided by us. We have the power to control it, to have it, and to design it however we see fit.
It doesn't matter how strong you are, it's how synchronized you are that drives you forward.
The difference in AI is that it is a unique innovation in the world of communications.
I kept doing the same stupid things over and over and over, expecting a different response. That's the definition of insanity. You've got to figure out, what do you care about?
I came for the money, and I'm staying for the great life. passion, knowledge, and then monetization.
You don't get the culture that you want, you get the culture that you are.
Oh my God, Atticus was amazing. That's subliminal messaging.
The biggest improvement is just being way more present to my family.
The community is phenomenal.
I'm surrounded by exceptional legal professionals.
Atticus saved my life.
Building a perpetual law firm is not about building a law firm at all. It's about how you lead a great life.
Yeah, so the mattering mindset at the core of the model is this idea that mattering matters. And I'm one that believes that I'm yet to meet a person on my 55 years on this planet that doesn't want to feel like their life matters. The question then is, how do we go out there and find that mattering? How do we find that purpose, our identity, our meaning, significance? And that, I think, becomes the journey of life, right? And so understanding that that's at our core, and then we have three perspectives that we wrap around that. One is understanding that I matter, and there's the good, the bad, the ugly of who I am. But inherently, I have value. Of 8 billion people in this world, there's only one of me, and that alone makes me special and unique, right? And then there's the you matter, which is how I impact those around me with my thoughts, my actions, my words, and every day we wake up, we have choices. We make 38,000 decisions a day as adults. How many of those are based in this idea that I can bring positivity and this inspiration and lift up those around me, even if they're total strangers? And then the final ring is the we matter, that we are a part of something bigger and that we're better together. And how can we find ways to connect and come together and build community and connection, all for the sense of a greater good? And so that's at the very core of the model. The question then is, how do you take this idea of I matter, you matter, we matter, and start to bring it into your professional life or your personal life? And for us, the next level that we go to is we really dig into values that matter. And so I strongly believe in the power of values, especially in times of uncertainty, in times of stress and change. If we can hold true to some values that are just non-negotiably, like this is who I am, this is what my company stands for, and we can hold true to those, they start to change the way we see things. We start to change our behaviors, and all of a sudden you'll start to see cultures and climates change that we get on this path. So when it comes for me now, I don't even have to think about it anymore, because I've been doing this for so long that every single day when I wake up, I see the world through I, you, and we. I'm weird. Like, I'll say hi to you in the elevator. My wife says it's creepy. I think it's weird that we ignore each other. These very basic fundamental things of what it means to be human start to come alive again. It's like, oh wow, I feel a deeper connection. I feel a greater purpose. That person I just said hi to, who knows? Maybe they're having a really hard time. And you start to see how powerful we are, and we get to create whatever it is that we want to create. Although in corporate America, what I see a lot of is people saying, hey, the culture here at our firm or our company is really toxic. We don't want to work here. I don't like it. But they talk about things like that, like as though they're standing here and the culture's over there. Like they're not a part of that culture. They're a viewer of what that culture is, and they don't like it. Well, the fact is, if you work somewhere, you are that culture too. And so what can then you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to start to create the culture you want to be a part of? And I think if we all take on that understanding, but then the commitment to take action, and I think that's the biggest part of everything that we do at Every Monday Matters, is I can help you understand I matter, you matter, we matter, but then what are you going to do about it? And we operationalize this mattering through our programs. So we say, okay, here's a plan for you to go out and do and take action upon, and you'll get to experience the power of mattering. And that's what ultimately transforms people and organizations and ecosystems.
So from a foundational perspective, did you first have to accept or embrace that I matter? Is it in your mind, a sequential model, I, you, we? Or is it a fluid model, we, you, I, depending on the context? I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It does, and I've never been asked this question, and I'm so glad that you did. No, I don't believe that it is sequential. Now, in my case, when I was going through my therapy, that's the sequence it followed. It followed because my ship had holes. It was taking on water quick. We had to steady the I, and then we started looking at the relationships, the you, and then there was the final stage was the we. But it's interesting because my books all end up in the self-help section of a bookstore. And the truth is, I'm not a fan of the self-help section of a bookstore because I don't live on my own private island with a volleyball named Wilson. And I get to stare at my navel all day and work on myself. I mean, I'm informed through you as well, and you learn from me, and we help each other grow. And so it's not like I have to learn to love myself before I can love someone else. Also, through loving other people, I could also learn to love myself and understand my value. And so I think it's very fluid for sure. But I also believe that right in the middle, where if it were a Venn diagram, where the I, the you, and the we all intersect, I believe right there is where us as humans are at our very best. When at all times we're taking care of ourselves, we're taking care of those around us, and we're taking care of the bigger slice of humanity.
I'm going to take a weird leap here.
Okay.
You're holding your breath. I can feel it. I am too.
Okay, good. We're in this together.
So when I think, so this'll be weird and I'll bring it back. Okay. One of the challenges I have with lawyers when they start to grow their practices is around how they charge for services, pricing, what they charge for their services, how they determine their value, so to speak. And I've noticed the ones that are weak on the I conversation, where they might not have a good relationship with their self. And I don't want to say it's self-esteem, but it's a good appreciation for who they are and what they bring to the party and how they contribute. That impacts, in my experience, their ability to price and their ability to serve. And so in the relationship of we as a law firm, we as serving our clients, I've noticed that it seems like, especially those that are a little weaker on the I matter conversation, they're actually more soft on their pricing. They're more weak on their ability to recruit and train great people. So I see them sometimes when they advocate for the clients, very powerful. I always joke their lines, the courtroom, lambs in the office, but they're very powerful when they go to court. They're very powerful representing people because that's how they're trained. They're really great advocates. But when it comes to the financial side of the practice, pricing, quoting prices, billing, making sure they get paid, making sure the staff gets paid a good wage by getting the firm paid, it gets a little fuzzy and a little weak. That's how come, as I'm asking the question and thinking about it, one of the greatest challenges I've had with lawyers when it comes to pricing is making sure that they understand they matter, the firm matters, the work they do matters. So does that make sense to you? Does that sound weird?
No, it caught me off guard a little bit that I didn't think you were going to go where you went, and let me explain. I mean, first of all, being a lawyer is a service industry, right? You are providing a service to your clients. A lot of times when we see people who work in service industries, take healthcare, for example, a lot of times the I matter is very light. We spend so much time focusing on our clients, making sure, or whether it's the patient or the client, right, that we're serving them and we want to do the best job we can, sometimes to the detriment of our own well-being, because we'll work ourselves to the bone to do so.
Bingo. Yeah, that's
right?
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
And you might even undervalue your services in terms of what you're actually charging for that service. At the same time, though, where I thought you were going to go is there's also the opposite end of the spectrum. It's the law firms that charge crazy rates per hour, and they do big business. And I have seen the identity of people shift to think that, oh, because I can charge X number of dollars an hour, which means I'm this accomplished, I matter more.
That's interesting. Yeah, generally we don't. The only lawyers I work with that come in with that attitude are usually they're usually senior attorneys. When I say senior, they're above the age of 40, 45. They've hit a wall of meaning, and most of the time, they've not run out of financial goals. They're at the peak of their profession, but their great life goals are depleted. Like their practice is killer, their peak of profession, but their meaning outside the practice is just non-existent. Like if you took the practice away, you yanked their license. It's okay, go, go, go join Matthew and his not-for-profit. It ain't gonna happen. Like that is just
Right.
a not a step away. That's like that's a bridge far too far. So it's interesting that you say that. I mean, it's interesting.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with being wildly successful. I mean, I had an old boss who he used to say, money ain't good, money ain't bad. It just makes good people gooder and bad people badder. Right? There's nothing wrong with being financially successful to wild degrees. I think the challenge then for us is like, because I would say, but that's not why you matter. And that is where I think some of the disconnect is, like, as you're saying, that maybe their personal life, their other life is kind of empty or void because they've committed so much to this drive to be financially successful that they've lost other parts of life in the process. Is there a magic formula? I don't necessarily know what it is, but is there an importance to be aware of these things, to have conversations around what does this whole pie look like? Like when I look back on my life, and my mother always says, you never see an armored car in the procession for a funeral. Like you never see the cash in a truck following to the grave, right? And so how are we aware that, yes, be successful, work hard, create amazing accomplishments, at the same time, don't lose these other things that might matter to you as well in life, that maybe you just kind of, parked, in this quest to be wildly successful.
That's great. So one of the things I want to talk to you about just briefly, and I just want to get a glimpse of this, is one of the things we've asked you to do is we're asking you to speak at our summit, and you're going to keynote for us, and you're going to keynote on the conversation. The topic's called Human-Centered Leadership, how to prioritize mental health, increase well-being, mitigate burnout across high-performing teams. And one of the reasons we asked you to speak about this is because, as you talked about the we, you and we, is our lawyers are drivers. Like they are high performers, and they have a tendency to not only burn themselves out, but burn their teams out. So could you give us a little glimpse of what you'll be talking about at the summit, why it matters to our members, to our audience, and why it's going to matter to their teams?
Yeah, I mean, at the core of human-centered design, and this goes back to the Stanford D School, they realize that the first step in any sort of design that is human-centered is the concept of empathy. And so diving into this idea of empathy, for me, it's again, this is where talking about practices and talking about just, the human journey, it's an interesting line. When I went through my dark times, when I had my breakdown and I was going through the depression and everything I was going through, for the first time for me, I experienced and understood how someone might feel when they say these things like, I just don't want to live anymore. Like I don't like this life. I'm dark, I'm depressed, I'm hopeless, I'm helpless. Before that, my life was for the most part pretty good. If it's a spectrum of emotions and pure joy is on this side and complete despair is over here, I was like 80% on the spectrum of things were decent. Sure, I lost an animal, or my grandma and grandparents passed, but ultimately I didn't know what that remaining, let's say 10% of human experience was. Once I experienced it, it's kind of a door you can never shut, because now you know what's possible for people to experience. For me, what that did is it just supercharged my empathy muscle. And so, because I never wanted anyone to go through what I went through. And that is largely what inspired me to start this whole journey of Every Monday Matters. If I could be that person that shows up in a time when someone just needs it more than ever, even for a millisecond, for me to say, hi, how are you? And for that person to feel seen, heard, or loved, because that's exactly what they needed at that time. then that was going to be the gift that I wanted to bring to the world. I think when it comes to your teams, when it comes to, these ultimately they're humans first, right? And we can bring our human stuff, our humanness to work. And I believe that it's important for us to acknowledge that we are not robots. We are not AI. We are actually real human beings with real things going on in our lives. And we have real needs. And the truth is, I believe that most of us have the same needs and at the deepest parts of our core. So if we can create spaces where we can be wildly successful and grow our practices, but also do it in a human way where we can show up as our authentic self, where we can feel valued and feel like we belong. I think sometimes that's the stuff that gets pushed to the side and called like soft skills, right? Oh, wouldn't it be nice if, you could actually enjoy going to your job and feel like you matter to people? And I think that right now we're in a unique space for companies or for law firms, you name it. The grounds are just ripe for them to recreate that watering hole, whether it's virtually or in person, for people like, you know what, when I go to work, this is when it's all these like real human itches can also get scratched. And because, the trust in institutions are down, the people going to church is shrinking. We have a loneliness epidemic in our world today. We're disconnected more than before. I really feel like there's an opportunity for, in this case, law firms to create that space again, that community again, where we come together. And yes, we do have purpose because we're working for a mission together, but we also care about each other's well-being. And we talk about things like life as well. And it can all coexist if we widen our vision to say that we can't just be widget makers because we're human first. We have to look at all this together. And that's where the human-centered design comes in.
So let's talk about money.
You're asking a guy who runs a nonprofit to talk about money. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's talk about money.
Money.
Let's talk about money. Let's talk about money. Here's what I heard. Because a lot of the lawyers are listening to this, and my job is to translate. I'm like the chief translator for for the tribe. And so here's what I heard. If there's purpose in matter, a mattering mindset in the law firm, both at the firm and for the team that works at the firm, your retention numbers will probably be through the roof.
That's right.
And money probably won't be the most important thing in the firm, but actually purpose and having a purpose-driven firm that really makes a difference for the clients. And if the clients are at the center of that firm and the clients matter, and they feel like they're at the center of the firm, and you've designed a firm where they matter, and of course, I matter for following your model. So we matter. Not only is it a rich experience, but I would imagine it's going to be financially rewarding. Now, it doesn't mean that we'll probably convert a law firm into a not-for-profit. Although I will tell you, some of our lawyers, I've accused them of running not-for-profits. I'm just saying. But
I appreciate how much you championship that for them. I'm picking this up for sure.
Yeah. So does that make sense to you? I mean, the way I just try to connect the financial rewards to the emotional rewards.
It does make sense. And I'm towing a fine line here right now because there are things that I'm going to talk about in my keynote that I don't necessarily want to share here per se as much.
No, don't tell them. Then we'll stop here. We won't tell them. We won't tell them. We won't tell them. That assumes somebody else is listening to this podcast other than you and me, but we won't tell them. Do you want to tell them one thing?
Oh, yeah. I can tell them.
Go for it. Go for one thing. Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Sometimes I get asked, does mattering matter? And how does it help grow a business, a profitable business? And there's two ways to answer that. Number one is the negative side. Imagine having a company or a firm where everyone that showed up there didn't feel valued. They didn't feel like they had any sort of purpose. They didn't feel any sort of meaningful connection. They didn't like their clients. The clients didn't like them. And there's this whole system of just brokenness, right? And disconnect. That's not going to perform well at all. Now, if that's not enough to help us see this, if on the flip side, when you understand that things that drive the model are values like authenticity and integrity and hope and connection and community and service, and you start to see these values that drive an engine where mattering is extremely present, whether that's an I, a you, or a we, all of a sudden that becomes an attractive place that absolutely it does solve for turnover issues. It does solve for retention. It does solve for teams and performance. And in every industry that I've worked with, whether that's again in healthcare, for example, the nursing industry. The nursing industry, they're really good at the you matter because they're serving constantly as nurses. Their I matter is horrible because they don't take care of themselves. And their we matter is even worse because they have they eat their own, these nurses, the generational differences, right? If you start to look at the industries through these lenses, you can see where they're performing, you can see where they're not performing, and you can see how you can tweak things to help it all balance out, which ultimately can't help but to increase the performance of the organization.
Got it. All right. So let's not talk anymore about this because I don't want to have you talk anymore about the keynote because people that will be there will get the benefit of hearing you talk about that. I'd like to pivot a little bit to a different direction. Is that okay?
Totally.
Okay. So I'd like to do two things. I'd like to share a quote with you that a wise man once wrote and have you explain your interpretation of this quote. And then I'd like us to talk about some practical things that people can take away from our conversation today and apply, because I'm going to create a downloadable worksheet with your permission. Why every Monday matters. I'll give everybody a downloadable worksheet so they can take some things away and put into play on Monday, because this podcast will download on a Monday. But here's the quote. You are not perfect, but you are unique. There's no other person like you. How would you interpret that?
You matter. And I'll tell you, for a lot of people, if you say those words to them, or if you were to read those words to them, I think a lot of people would have a hard time knowing how to even hear it and how to process that. I think that there's some of those words, I mean, perfectionism, right? It is just, it runs rapid, and not many of us feel like we're perfect. And I would suggest that, hey, even in all of our imperfections, we're perfect. And so I'm wondering if I was the wise person that said those words or not. But
I think you wrote those words, but
is definitely a wise person.
Okay,
Definitely wise.
I think it's a wise person. So I think it's a wise person, a very learned thinker, a very wise person who wrote those. But you're probably inquiring them right now, going, "Did I write those? Do those still make sense to me?"
They do, very much so.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're in a conversation of constant inquiry, a conversation of reshuffling meaning, refocusing purpose, redefining purpose. So you're doing some great work, and the work that you do, not to be too coy about it, does matter. What would you give as takeaway actionable advice to people listening this that we will integrate into a worksheet that they can download from this podcast? What would you say? These are 3 things that you can do now on your Mondays.
Well, I mean, short of it sounding like a commercial, I mean, they could go to everymondaymatters.org and they can sign up for our newsletter, for one thing. And I will step back on that a little bit to say that we talked about the I matter, you matter, we matter part of our belief system and the mattering mindset. But the other part, the other half, I guess, if you will, to our theory of change is if when you help people understand I, you, we matter, and then you drive values into systems, that's when the total transformation happens. So that, our mission is to create a world where everyone knows how much and why they matter. The way we do it is every Monday. So that's become our vehicle. And so let's say we're going to make the month of May is a value. So Monday gets kind. And so we're going to spend the entire month of May trying to drive kindness or trying to drive purpose or whatever value you want to try to drive. And then every Monday becomes a strategy on then how to go drive that value. And so I'll just make up a quick example. If it were Monday Gets Kind is going to be the monthly theme. Let's say the first Monday, the strategy is going to be use your words. And I'm happy to help create a downloadable thing with you on this. Use your words. Well, in an I Matter sort of way, the first thing I would want to do then, again, taking action, is do an audit on my self-talk. What words do I use when I'm describing myself? Am I kind to myself, or do I beat myself up? Am I never enough? Am I always comparing myself to someone else? The You Matter engagement might be go out there and just give 5 compliments to people today and just experience it. See what happens. You'll notice things that might even shock you as you go out there and connect and just spread some kindness. The We Matter thing might be, hey, let's get all of our colleagues to bring in, socks and underwear or t-shirts, and let's gather them and go to a shelter and share with the people how much they still matter and give them these kind gestures of gifts. But let's, again, you can start to take all of these strategies and put them through an I, a you, or a we, or all the above, and you can do those in life or at work. So at the end of the day, it becomes a bit prescriptive, right? It's every week. These are things you can go do and just keep doing it. And it's a slow drip system of, it's not like we're going to climb Mount Everest tomorrow, but we're going to commit to this mattering journey. And over time, every single Monday, mattering, it starts to have the change. And before you know it, you actually do see the world different. You do act different. And you do create companies and ecosystems and families that are different. I mean, I hear from the wives of employees saying, I don't know what you're doing at my husband's company, but whatever you're doing, he's never been a better husband. Like, I didn't go out there to try to help him be a better husband. Right. But as the mattering starts to increase, it impacts our life across everything.
Fabulous. So as we start to wrap up, talk to everybody about how they can connect with you online, what your podcast is, because you got a great podcast. And don't hesitate to promote anything else that you want to promote that will support your mission and cause.
Well, everymondaymatters.org is the nonprofit's website. And then my personal website is matthewemerzian.com. And that's kind of more for my keynote speaking world. I'm on LinkedIn as well as Matthew Emerzian. I think that, ultimately we have programs for individuals in the form of my books that if people want, and the book I would recommend is a book called You Matter, Learning to Love Who You Really Are. It's my favorite of the 4 that I've written for sure. But ultimately, it's not about me. Like I live my life through this idea that I matter, but it's not about me. And my hope for your listeners is that this idea of mattering speaks to them and they take their own mattering journey and whatever that looks like for them. But to number one, yes, understand that you do matter and that you do have unique gifts that this world needs. And there's people out there that need your gifts as well. And together we can do amazing things. And I just hope it up levels your life and both professionally and personally. And I mean, I'm kind of crazy, but my email address is matthew@everymondaymatters.com. It's like, if you want to reach out. I love connecting with people. I'm certainly not a professional therapist or anything like that, but I've learned a thing or two on this journey of 18 years of bringing mattering to the world. And so I'm really, truly here to serve. And if you're not already coming to the event in Florida, register, come, and I'd love to meet you in person, and we could dive into this even more.
Well, let's create a game. So you and I are going to we're going to create a downloadable worksheet.
Okay.
And download the worksheet. And when you come to the summit and you see Matthew, you let him know that you took on the Every Monday Matters game that he and I created on this particular episode. And so we'll give you the opportunity to take what you're learning from Matthew and put into play in your life. And then my recommendation, if the listeners are up for it, they can come up to you and say, hey, Matthew, it mattered. Like what you taught me on that particular episode mattered. I put into play the game, the worksheet, and it's totally free. It's all they got to do is invest a little bit of time in this
That's right.
and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, they can stop doing it. If it works, they can keep doing it and build a little momentum. Now, between you and me, they don't know this, but it'll work if they do it. But,
Yeah,
but
it will.
if they do it, it seems to work better if they actually apply it. That's my experience.
And I'll take your game to a new level too. If they do that, I'm going to figure out a little something gesture or a little gift that I will give to them once they come and share that with me.
Oh,
Not to have it be incentive driven,
no, not be incentive driven.
but as a sign of my gratitude and appreciation for them, giving mattering a shot.
I love it. 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 And one of the things that you do is that and now this may not be you, it may be another wise man that used to be you. Gratitude is a great force that teaches us to accept life as it is.
Yes. Yeah. Another way, a friend of mine who's also a wise man used to say, if it's not fun, it's funny. And
that's clever. I like that.
Which I've always loved. And the combination of that, if it's not fun, it's funny. It also anchors me in this place of gratitude. And, I've always tried to see the silver lining. I've always tried to ask myself, what am I supposed to learn here? Because again, yes, life is beautiful, but life can also be messy. And the best that we can do to remain grateful, to find the joy, to find the lessons, to grow, and then to pay those things forward. I think ultimately, to me, that's what life's all about. And imagine a world that the first thing everyone thought when they woke up in the morning was, today I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm also going to take care of the people around me, whether that's professionally or personally. Like, that's a pretty awesome space, and I would love to see that.
Fantastic. So thank you. Thanks for being you. Thanks for sharing the lessons that you shared. Thanks for going out there and pushing the envelope every single day to help people. And thanks for coming to the summit to make a difference for our members. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Matthew.
I can't wait. Honored to be selected and to be there.
Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.